I used to be somewhat discriminating about teachers. And that was in a period when there were very few.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there are very many. And
That makes you less discriminating?
I have decided to support the whole experiment, the total experiment, and not just the part of it that appeals to me the most. The experiment that I'm referring to is the experiment of bringing a South Asian perspective and a very, very much older and more mature, in my view, perspective than the Palestinian European perspective. And bringing that to the United States is what I consider to be an experiment.
Mm-hmm.
I'm one of the originators of the experiment. And because I've done this for love and not for money, I think I have something valid to say about the whole event. The stress on the world and in the world, and the lack of leadership that is, a part of that stress. The stress is a function of that lack of leadership, is the reason why this experiment of yoga is, sort of arising in the first place. Originally, yoga came to the United States in, the 1890s with Vivekananda. And, it took hold in an environment where the income disparity in those days was extraordinary. There was an enormous amount of stress. The traditional Catholic and Christian churches that were, dominant, the Baptists in the South, the various Christian churches in the North, and the Catholics in, all over the place, were failing their constituencies in, their support of the wealthy. And so at that time, Vivekananda's here saying, you guys are so arrogant and you don't understand nothing. That's basically what he said at the World Conference of Religions in Chicago. And a bunch of people took that and heard it. And that became the beginning of a whole movement, a new Christian movement, which was influenced by the Bhagavad Gita, importantly. And then you have spirituality that is starting to happen in the United States. And there are a couple of other people who come, Swami Ram Tirth, and then Yogananda comes. And where does this latest experiment arise out of? Well, it arises out of a period of turmoil in the United States that was racial turmoil, and it was financial turmoil, and it was imperialist turmoil. Mm-hmm. It was the response of young people to the civil rights movement, to racism in the United States and the civil rights movement, to imperialism in the United States and the Vietnam War. So yoga came along in this period as a response by some of us, me included, to the, disempowering ways the establishment responded to our concerns. Yoga came up in this environment. Yoga has provided those of us who are concerned about tolerance over intolerance, who are concerned about justice over injustice, who are concerned about the quality of the environment, who are concerned about truth over propaganda and dogma, who are concerned about, the quality of experience over the following of the rules. We engaged in this experiment called yoga. This experiment has grown steadily over the last 45 years or so, to the degree, that when I started, there were probably no yoga teachers between New York and, certainly in the Midwest, there were 2 yoga teachers. I was teaching, Lilius Folan was teaching in Cincinnati. Lilius Folan then went to PBS and started doing yoga, Lilius Yoga and You, and that made people around the world aware of yoga. And it has gone on from there.
All over the place, in so many directions.
So yoga is, the presence of yoga in the United States is responding to a genuine personal need for a social and cultural transformation. There is, there is a personal need. This personal need exists in everyone. And increasingly, the establishment and its component institutions has responded to the stress in the world today with increasing rigidity. And that, and an increasing lack of transparency. And so yoga has provided us as individuals with a very simple, true, effective tool for eliminating rigidity, dissipating stress, creating flexibility, enhanced range of vitality and motion, enhanced emotional and psychological clarity, a genuine tool for transforming ourselves and living in this increasingly stressful world with ease and grace, with kindness and compassion. So, it's sort of I think it's a self-sorting situation. And I think some aspects of this experiment will survive on for a long time and continue to influence America. I think that the commercial elements of the program will survive and move on and continue to influence America. I think they'll succeed and continue because, the commercial model suits the American, interest. I think Americans are, for the most part, comfortable with situations that simply convey information and simply convey that information, for the purpose of self-improvement. This whole infusion of yoga into America and the 30 million or so people who in some way are, if there are 20 million people doing it, there are 30 million people who are kind of in the flow of it all. I really hope that those people somehow develop the strength and the courage to do something that makes a difference in this culture. I think yoga, I think meditation, I think positivity, service, and love are really essential in the dark days of this sort of ultimately polarized circumstance where, ignorance and hatred, and greed are dominating. I hope that, we can rise above the ignorance, hatred, and greed and go forward to establish at least the beginnings of a renewed, refined culture. I think yoga in America is an experiment because what you're doing is blending two different, really in a way, completely different cultures and completely different objectives. American culture is about conform and consume. Yoga is about exactly the opposite. It is about discovering your uniqueness, and understanding how that uniqueness fits into the fabric of the whole of creation. And for that, material consumption is not necessary at all. What is really necessary is love, nourishment, positivity, and practice. I have continued to participate in yoga because I find yoga, if you really want to make a change in your life, the first place, and for me, the best place to start is doing yoga. Doing yoga is personal and it is transcendental at the same moment. It engages your physical body in the physical world, and that engagement leads to an appreciation of your own, energetic nature. It leads to a direct experience of yourself as energy, and energy as the essence of all phenomenon. This experiment called yoga is, sort of continuing to grow and be transformed even as we speak. It has, really had a big impact on a small population of people. And I think going forward, it has the possibility of having an ever increasingly large impact. If the people participating in the experiment do so with integrity and authenticity,